Hello and welcome to Drive-In Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan,
I'm Ryan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into today's movie, be sure to check out our Patreon. Just for $5 a month, you get a bunch of bonus content, some fun episodes going up over there. But today it's back to Bondzilla. It's Tuesday, so we're talking about another James Bond movie. A lot of returning people today. John Glen is director. We got Roger Moore back as the main Bond. And the name of this movie is Octo. There we go. So, well, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's how you pronounce it.
I think so. I think so. No, we're talking about Octopussy, a classic James Bond title. I think people remember the title more than the movie to this one. It's just the standard. I remember hearing a story from my dad of him and his because he was at school when this movie came out, and I guess him and kids at school used to make fun of this name all the time.
How
I
can you make
wonder
fun of this
why.
name?
I don't know. I don't get it, but I think it's an interesting name. It's a made up thing. Octopuses, never heard of them.
Well, I mean that's what you'd say to like a cat mixed with an octopus or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting, like a catfish octopus, maybe a mix
Yeah.
between both two. But yeah, we're back here with James Bond. He's in the 80s now. He's been in the 80s since the last one. I guess what's really interesting about this one more than anything is it's the same year as Never Say Never, which is the Sean Connery returning as James Bond, but it's a non-Eon movie, right? So what they were really pushing for with this one to be the competitor to that one, to be the better Bond movie. And I haven't seen that movie, but I'm sure it's probably true, knowing that movie's reputation.
Uh, why don't you just save judgment, okay? I mean, it's got Sean Connery. I mean, it checked all my
Yeah.
boxes, which is one.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time that I made a bold claim and then I'd have to be like, oh, you know what, I was wrong. So, I'm used to it at this point. Don't trust me. That's all I'm saying. Uh, but anyway, Octopussy. Have you seen this one before, Ryan?
No, I have not actually.
Yeah, neither have I. So this was a first time for me. I actually didn't know much about this movie. I don't. I guess like I said, other than the title, I just didn't even know the plot of this one. I feel like even with Bonds you haven't seen, like villains and maybe henchmen from it. No, I don't think anybody really talks about this one. I don't hear great things. I don't hear bad things. It kind of just sits there. At least like in my mind.
I've always known it as to be like middle tier or like the one of the lower
Hmm.
uh respected Bond movies. So I wasn't like too terribly excited going into this one, to be quite honest with you. So
Yeah. Yeah, and then how did you come out feeling it? Because what you just described is pretty much it. I thought it was a fine Bond. It wasn't one of the best. I wouldn't say it was one of the worst. It's an improvement over the last one in my opinion. But yeah,
I,
I wouldn't say it's one of the best.
no, I actually really liked it.
You really did? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, yeah. I It's not my favorite Roger Moore movie, but it's definitely better than some of the other outings. I feel like. I mean, I liked it better than For Your Eyes Only, and I
Yeah,
think I
for
liked it
sure.
better than Moonraker too. So
Mm.
um, it's I don't know. I really like the chemistry between him and Octopussy, and I also, I like that it's a lot more simpler story too. Like it's pretty much just like they got this egg, and this egg has got a chip in it, and it controls nuclear warheads. So we got
Yeah, it's Bond at its most basic. I feel like that when I was watching it was basics Bond. Like it was simple story. You watch it, you know what's going on, and there's nuclear warheads. Russia's in on this one. It's all the hallmarks. It's all there.
yeah. I will say like the villain in it is not one of my favorite ones because I think it's kind of
Mhm.
I think, well, I mean, this one, it's like they actually get like a Russian agent or like a Russian like military man who actually goes rogue, and he wants
Yeah.
to destroy Western society. So,
Hmm.
um, but I don't know. Like by this point, it's been 20 years. I kind of think like the whole Cold War thing has been a little played out at this point, a little bit. But
Yeah. But well,
uh,
it continues on in the Bond franchise still.
oh yes, it's not going away. So
Yes. Yeah, it's just another Cold War thing. I guess once again, it is time and place. 83, we were still thinking about it. And I guess this one goes interesting places. The Globetrotting here's nice. They go to India, but they also go to West Berlin, which is always a really interesting setting, in my opinion. But before we even get into that movie, we got to talk about this pre-title sequence, which it has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. But sets everything up. It's better than the Blofeld uh
like
intro.
crying or whatever in the last one.
Yeah, it's much better. I won't say like it's one of my favorites, but it's fun. It just has Bond infiltrating, like it's like a derby, and he drives away, gets caught, drives away, and he flies a plane out of a horse's butt. So you really can't,
You
really
can't
can't,
go wrong.
you really can't go wrong. I thought that was wild, the fake horse's butt that lifted up and let this like single person plane leave it. A little surprising.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. And then I mean I mean it's almost like they did that whole sequence just to have that punchline at the end where
Yeah.
he kind of crash lands that plane
Mhm.
into a gas station, like in an old time, like an old small town gas station. The guy's like, huh? And goes, fill her up.
Yeah, and then we get the title sequence. And it has like ends with like a poor freeze frame of Roger Moore just kind of smiling, and then it like hands collapse on him. No, and I mean, if there's one thing, I don't want to put too much hate on Octopussy because I don't dislike this movie at all, but I think the title sequence is pretty rough. I didn't like it at all. um
That's one thing I was gonna say. If there was anything I didn't enjoy about like about the other common elements of Bond is that I thought the opening sequence was a little weak, and
mhm.
I mean, just I don't know. There's like one part in the opening sequence where they just had they look like they have like a cardboard cutout of like James Bond, just like kind of like freeze framing. They just like
It's
he rises
so
from the ground.
bad. Yeah. Yeah, that, and then like the women's arms wrap around him, and I think it's supposed to be like an octopus, but like it's like the green screen is so bad that like women's hands are just like missing. It doesn't look good.
There's like the one too where they have a gun and it's like it looks like it's shooting women out.
That's right. Yeah. And like squeezes out. It's bad. I don't know. This one just like struck me as like kind of it was redoing old things, but not as good as before.
So for you, it wasn't an all time high.
It was not, which is the song All Time High, which to me is also another not all time high. Not a bad song, not a bad song at all, but to me, it's just kind of forgettable.
I liked it, but it's not one of my favorites. I mean, like you
Yeah.
said, it's a good song. It's not. I, I still don't think we've heard. I mean, maybe Lulu's version,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think that one's probably still the worst. But I'd say like even at this point, we haven't really heard a bad Bond song.
No, yeah. Other than the Lulu one, really, yeah. There's no bad one. This just sounds like adult content, contemporary. Um,
I like a one with a little more like power in the
and
vocals, like "For Your Eyes Only" or "The Spy Who Loved Me," where it's just like the singer really hits like those real high notes, or like it looks like they're
mhm.
putting some like effort into their voice. And this one is just very much like 80s romance type of song. It's like na 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 na, that type of thing. So
Yeah. No, exactly. It just kind of run of the mill. But then we get the actual movie where we get to see that clown running away from the circus, and they get
a
knifed.
lot of clowns in this movie.
It's a clown movie. I was a clown while watching because I watched it. Yeah,
you,
I'm
I,
just kidding.
you got the big red wig on and nose right now.
I do, yeah. I just take everything I've said, my opinion, and just imagine me wearing a clown outfit right now.
I mean, and he wears that every time he does the show.
Okay, Ryan. All right. You don't have to let them know that. Uh, but I do think it's a fun opening sequence. It feels kind of random when you first watch it, but as you get further into the movie, you find out that it's an actual double O agent that dies, and it starts to get a little more power. And I think if when I rewatch this movie, which I'd like to, I think maybe that scene will come off a little bit better because it actually was kind of tense him getting like chased.
Oh yeah, I mean, I actually really liked the first half of this movie. That's probably
Mhm.
my favorite part was just like the build up towards it. I mean, I the clown, it does at first you are kind of taken aback because it is they're chasing a literal clown,
Yeah.
but I did like it, because the all these circus performers are also in on this whole act, and I liked it when they use the throwing knives and everything,
Hmm.
and this movie too. That's where I'm like, because like I used to play GoldenEye, the 64 a lot,
Hmm.
and I'm like, this is where the throwing knives came from.
Oh, I never even thought of that. I thought those were just like weapons. Like, it's just like, oh, we're gonna put them in. No, that's really cool. I like that. Wow, that game's actually good. Surprising.
I thought only 30-year-olds play that.
Hey, I'm only a few years away from 30.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm,
stop.
yeah. Um, but no, that is really cool. One thing another thing I didn't really like about this one, there's a money penny scene, and I think what's the other girl's name? Penelope Swallow?
Small bush.
Small Bush. No, wait, yeah, that's right. Um, but it's like I watched the behind the scenes, which I'm sure did you
Yeah,
watch them, where she
I,
was
I
like
did.
they just tried to put a young woman in there just to have something to look at because she brings absolutely nothing. She just stands there.
I I was that if there's a scene I did not like in this movie, it's definitely this one, because
Yeah,
it's like it's to me it's like so disrespectful
it
to
is.
like to Lois Maxwell. Like, she's the only person that's been in consistently all the Bond movies, and
Yes, yeah.
I now it's been 20 years at this point since she was in Doctor No, so
She's
it's
older. Yeah.
she is older, but so is Roger Moore, who's like in his 50s at this point.
Yeah.
So it's not that unheard of that they would be a couple. So, but I do think that I don't know. Like, I was just like, can you really like? To me, it would be like there would be so much more memories between the two characters. I know it's supposed to be like this big ha ha moment where it's just like, oh, they traded Moneypenny in for a younger model type of thing,
Yeah.
but I don't know. To me, it's just like it kind of ruins the relationship between
It
Bond
does.
and Moneypenny, because they're supposed to be like this couple that want to be a couple, but they know that it'll never work because of the job that he's doing, and she would never ever want to be committed to a guy like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that dynamic, and it's just always been there. It's like Bond movies always have the comfortable similarities, and that was just one of them. It was just like, oh, every time I'm gonna see a nice, like a funny money penny scene, and here it's just like it's funny, sure, but like you said, it's disrespectful. Like, oh, you've been in this movie for so long. The joke is that you're being traded in for a younger model, but that's also kind of what's actually going on behind the scenes. So it stops being funny. But I mean, well, after this point, I'll say I don't think there's anything else that I really dislike. There's some really good stuff here because they get a fake Fabergé egg, and Roger Moore actually goes to an auction to kind of scope things out and figure what's going on. How are these fakes getting traded in? And I really like this auction scene where he constantly is raising the prices, and it's so over the top with everybody else at the auction. They just seem so flabbergasted. They're like like that the whole time as he just raises the price up and up.
Yeah, that was another scene I actually liked where it
Uh-huh.
was they wanted to prove how badly that Kamal, I think that's the guy's
Yeah,
name,
Kamal
how bad
Khan.
he, yeah, how bad he wanted the egg. So it, like Bond
Mhm.
would throw it in, and the guy he's with or whatever was just like, "What are you doing? Like, we may have to pay for this egg." And he's like, "Oh no, we won't." And then Bond does the old switcheroo and puts the
Mhm.
fake egg there and takes the real one with him.
Yeah, yeah, and that kind of sets up things with Kamal Khan, kind of putting him in his sights and everything. And when you mentioned the bad guy being underwhelming, were you talking about Kamal Khan or were you talking about General Orlov, the Russian guy, or both?
I guess both, really. I mean, I
Yeah,
didn't. I either one of them didn't really stand out to me. Where it's just like memorable Bond villains.
yeah, I would say both of them aren't memorable, but I actually like them in a way. I maybe it's just coming off of For Your Eyes Only, where I really just didn't care for the villain in that one. This one they're at least somewhat notable. It's Louis Jordan playing Kamal Khan, who he does a good job. He's a really good presence, and then it's Steven Burkoff playing General Orlov, and he is so over the top. And I think that made me laugh. Like he's just constantly yelling. There's like that scene where in it's with all the Russians and they're just like talking about destroying the rest of the world and he's just screaming every other word. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he does. I mean, he's not a bad one, I don't think, but it's
Yeah.
just like I don't know. It just for me it wasn't a standout like among like the other rogue gallery or
Oh yeah.
whatever.
It's no I can't
It's
think of
no,
any.
it's no
Who?
Teehee.
Yeah, I love Teehee or the henchman in this movie, Yo-Yo guy, Yo-Yo Saw Blade Man, which that comes up later, but what
That was a cool moment though.
I, I agree. I just think that is so wild. This movie, if I was to give props to it for one thing, I feel like a lot of the other ones of Roger Moore's career, it's always been like, oh, this is too serious, or oh God, we're getting too campy. This like kind of matches it pretty well. It's a little bit of camp and a little bit of seriousness, and it works pretty. It's solid.
That's what I was going to. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's the perfect amount of campiness where it's like, yeah, there is some over the top moments, but
Mm-hmm.
you do get the serious side of Bond too. So yeah, I agree with that assessment. That what I do like to like some of the more funnier moments is
Mm-hmm.
he does meet one of the women that works for Octopussy,
Oh yeah.
and they end up sleeping together. And he sees that she has like a little tattoo
Mm-hmm.
of octopus. And he's like, "Oh, darling, what is that?" And she says, "Like, oh, that's just my little octopussy." And he's just like his eyes get so big, like,
I
huh,
know.
like,
I think Roger Moore. I think like this one does it best. He's really good with face acting, and like he like his. You're right. His he like looks. He like does a double take. Like, huh? What does that mean?
yeah.
Um,
And I actually liked it too, where she wears the sari and she uses it to she jumps out the off the balcony and uses that to like
yeah.
twirl down to the very bottom.
Which I guess in real life is an actual stunt that actress did because she's like an athlete or something, which is crazy. But yeah, I mean, this movie, they end up going to India for a good chunk of this movie, which, if I remember right from like a few documentaries ago, like that's a place that they've been wanting to go to for multiple movies. And I think it's a really good setting. We do get a really good side character. VJ, is that right?
Does the job? Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think yeah, but I actually like him a lot. He doesn't do a lot in this movie, but he is a really likable character, even though his introduction's really weird. You got to tell me how you feel about this scene where he's doing the snake charmer and he plays the James Bond
Oh
theme.
yeah.
And like Roger Moore,
I,
it's like a calling card, like, oh yeah, you're a double O agent.
that part was a little too silly for
I think
me,
so.
and because it's he plays the James Bond theme song, and you're right, it's just like, and Roger Moore says, "Oh, I have nice tune," and
Yeah, that one's a lot like the scene from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Like, oh, that wouldn't have happened to the other guy. Not
Yeah.
as bad, but like still very fourth wall breaking. And this is a little bit later. We'll get into that, but there's another moment like that where they have a sound effect added where Roger Moore's swinging on a vine and they add in the Tarzan yell. What was
Yeah.
that? It's just like the flipping through the air and they play the cartoon sound effect just all over
I
again.
I that's almost like I feel like every movie did that at some point where it's just like, oh, we got to put in the Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan noise, and
Yeah.
I feel like we've heard that a bunch of times to
Oh
the
yeah.
point where it's like, okay, yeah, we get it. Like he's supposed to be Tarzan. I mean, to me, it's like seeing James Bond on a jungle vine swinging is enough. Like, okay, I get what you're going for here. I don't need to be hit in the face with it.
Yeah. But do you think if you made a movie with somebody swinging on a vine, and you probably have a dilemma, right? You'd be like, oh, do I add in the Tarzan sound effect or do I
Oh
not?
yeah, I would.
Oh, you would. You see, there you go. Now,
And then right before he lands, I'd play a slide whistle.
there we go. Yeah. Um, I would add in as many sound effects as I could to my live action movie to make it sound like a cartoon. That's what I would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. But no, this movie ends up taking a lot of turns. There's actually, it's simple. I guess it's hard to explain. There's a lot of details, but when you're watching the movie, it all works together very well.
Well, I mean, it's kind of well, I mean, we haven't really talked about the title character either. I mean, it's
Oh no.
Octopussy,
Yeah,
and
because she's kind of a mystery for a good chunk of the movie.
yeah, we don't see her until an hour into the movie, and
Mm,
I uh, I do like to like leading up to that. I don't know if there was like other callbacks to like other James Bond story titles, like he when he puts the book, he hits the book like property of a lady,
oh
and
yes, yeah.
like that's a James Bond title, and but we see Octopussy, and she has her own traveling circus, and she's got like an army of women, and it's just funny. She she has like this big organization, and you kind of expect her to be like the big bad guy of the movie, but they
Mhm.
kind of do like the twist where it's like, oh no, like she was the one being double crossed this whole time,
Yeah,
and it turns out they like add in like this really weird history between her and James Bond where
yeah.
she's like, oh, you captured my father, thank you for letting my father commit suicide so that way he didn't have to be tortured, and just like,
And then they have sex. So it's
of
so
course.
of course, but yeah, I agree. And it's very unneeded. I think they only mentioned that one scene and it never comes back up, that plot point.
No. And this is the only time I believe, other than maybe the Daniel Craig ones, but those were like the recurring characters. But the the same actress played a different Bond girl each time.
That's right. She was in
Man with a Golden
Man
Gun.
with the Golden Gun. That's right. Yeah. She got upgraded though, because wasn't she a minor Bond girl in that one?
Well, that was
Um
the one where like Bond was pursuing her, but she ended up dying, and he ends up hooking up with Brett Eklund's character, who was like the spy that was tagging along with him that he was annoyed by throughout the whole movie.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, and here's the thing. If there's a really strong point about this movie, I think Octopussy is a good character. I like that turn because she's a bad guy. She deals in like thievery and stuff like that, but she also has a heart of gold. She helps out these women. I think she mentions all the businesses she runs. It's like she's like, oh yeah, real estate, blah blah blah, and then ends with circus too. I run a circus as well. But no, and like her and Roger Moore both have really good chemistry, in my opinion. I think they work really well together.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think they even said that um because they even said like before this movie came out is that For Your Eyes Only was originally going to be Roger Moore's final Bond movie
Hmm.
because he was just getting older and everything like that, and he was just like, "Oh no, I'm done," type of thing. But they were able to coax him back, mostly like you said, because of the Sean Connery movie, and they wanted to make sure that they were firing on all cylinders. But at one point, they were going to put
Oh
again
yeah.
an American Bond in there, and I think it was like what James Brolin
James
was.
Brolin, yeah. And there's footage of it. You can find it. There's footage of him doing scenes from this movie. They were that close to having James Brolin.
And I think what they said was is that Maud Adams was just going to be in just to do like the screen test or
Hmm.
whatever, just to kind of be there as a spot filler. But when they decided to bring her Roger Moore back, they're like, "Oh well, you guys had great chemistry. Let's just do it again."
And so it worked out for her. She got a job out of it. But could you
Yeah,
imagine? I just don't know. We talked about this before. American Bonds. I just don't see why that was like such a pushing point. Like, I don't think that's the right move.
I mean, part of me wants to see it,
Yeah,
but at the same time, it's just I don't know of anybody that I don't know how you could do it any other way though. It's
yeah.
like I want to see it, but I don't want to see it.
I gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Well, when Chris Pratt is James Bond for the next one, yeah, you'll be sitting there.
Um,
Yeah.
I prefer him as Garfield. Thank you. I'm more excited for that role.
Oh God, is he? Yeah, you're right. Jeez. Well, who's gonna play Garfield, huh? Bill Murray? Come on.
Yeah.
You know. But but yeah, no, Octopussy. I mean, you know what? The more you say it, the more comfortable you are with it. It is true. I'm just dropping this word every once in a while.
Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue.
It really does. I have a really brief note here. When I wrote it down because I thought it was Bond being a sleazy guy. There's a Q scene in India, classic showing inventions. And what I like is there's an invention that actually comes back later in the movie. You usually don't see that, but there's a TV camera in there, and for whatever reason, Bonds decides, "Oh, I'm gonna zoom in on this lady's boobs," and he's like a kid zooming in and out on it, and I'm just like, why are they making him look like a child right now?
Bond. He's like every man. What man would not do that, Nathan?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's kind of put this woman in an uncomfortable position as I'm pretty sure there's TV surrounding her.
I know. No, yeah, just add it to the list of Bond being a sleaze bag. But
Yeah, don't worry,
but
we'll do a mega list later.
but I mean, at least with Roger Moore, I'll say this: at least those moments are a little more fewer, but
Oh
compared
yeah,
to the Connery years.
and he didn't force anybody into anything,
Yeah,
like
a little
uh
much, a little voyeurism never hurt anybody.
it's okay, it's fine, whatever. But I think I another thing to bring up, Magda, who is the side Bond girl in this one, the one that flips out, that scene where they're together, I have to bring up, did you notice their kiss? That how like forceful that kiss was, and not from Roger Moore, it was from Magda. She like open mouth, like looks like she's forcing this man into a kiss, like they weren't ready. Rewatch the scene, Ryan. I can yeah.
I'll put it on repeat after we're done recording.
Thank you. um but I get I guess moving on from there, I guess that's when the Cold War politics start to come into this, where it's like this whole plot to blow up a nuclear bomb in like that circus in Berlin, but it was an accident. So then the UK is going to open up their borders, and it's going to allow the Russians to come in and attack. It's a very elaborate plan.
Yeah, it's all hinging on this circus. Like, think like whatever they do if there was not a traveling circus.
I know, right? If Octopussy didn't have some circus thing, which is so weird, which Bond gets to watch, and I love this little bit of Bond hide. You know how he sneaks past the guards? He hides behind a fat guy. You remember that? He's walking down the
Oh
stands.
yeah,
It's like a fat guy, and he's like hiding behind him. Very, very genius.
Bond's got a lot of really funny hiding moments in
I
this
know.
movie.
Well, later he dresses up as a clown.
Well, before that, he dresses up as a gorilla.
That's right. Yeah, man, this movie does have a lot more camp than I expected. It's
I
actually a
just
pretty funny movie.
just the image of like, because Bond is in a train car because there's like a train fighting sequence, and
Mhm.
Bond is hiding in one of the train cars, and he's like in a gorilla costume. But it's just the image of like Roger Moore with a gorilla mask on.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just is so funny.
And I think it does a close up and it's him like watching like out of the side of his eye through the gorilla mask. But yeah, I mean the ending of this is just kind of insane because it ends up in Berlin, which is really cool. But there's a nuclear bomb going here, and I love, just like I said, James Bond puts on clown makeup. There's a nuclear bomb about to go off in the middle of this circus, and this man puts on clown makeup. That's dedication, just for him to take it off like 2 minutes after getting in.
Well, I mean, he disarms the bomb while wearing the clown makeup. So it's the funniest, probably one another funny part is uh, there's a military man in the audience, and Bond runs up to him. He's like, "I'm James Bond. I'm a British agent," and they're just like, "Huh? Like this clown he's crazy."
I know. Yeah, it takes him like way too long to be like, oh, there's a bomb in here. Okay. See, okay. So here's where like maybe it kind of falls apart for me. This movie, that seems like the end of the movie, right? Like, oh, this is the big moment. No, this movie ends a couple more times. It has like a lot of wrap up time.
That's what I was saying before. I prefer the first half of this movie a lot
Mm-hmm.
more, but I the pacing of the second, because the train sequence is a very long sequence,
Yes. Yeah.
and that's what you said, like I assumed that was going to be the end of the movie. It was going to end on the train, but it's like, oh no, we got one more chase sequence to do.
Yeah. And I mean, it looks cool too, because we do have like the train sequence looks really good in my opinion. I do like that one. Also, just a side note, another person is hurt on a James Bond movie. This is a very common thing. Guy got his like thigh meat ripped off while during a train sequence, which is insane.
Well, the injury they described, which was Martin Grace, I believe his name was, but
Yes, yeah.
he was hanging on the side of a train, and they
Hmm.
didn't judge the distance properly, and he ends up hitting a concrete extension that comes out of the ground. So it's just like full on, just like at 50 miles per hour or whatever, like
Yeah.
slams into like a concrete wall, and his pelvis, like his hip is broken, and breaks his leg too, and
Hmm.
ends up being in the hospital for 6 months.
Yeah, which is insane. But I mean, that is what you sign up for when you're a stunt person,
Hey,
unfortunately.
they said he came back ready to go as soon as he was done. So
Okay, that's really cool. And we do get a really cool stunt with planes, or with one plane, where Bond is on the back of the plane. Very obviously a stunt double, but it still looks really cool. But with this guy hanging on the back of a plane as it's flipping in the air.
now, is it better than Cliffhanger though?
Better than Cliffhanger? I don't know. Cliffhanger is pretty awesome. So
That
I
one had
can't.
the most. That one had them zip lining from plane to plane though.
Yeah, I love the 3 seconds of that we got to see. No,
Got paid
yeah,
$1 million.
yeah, that's awesome. But in all honesty, this is better because I can actually see it.
I was gonna say like that one. Like I said, as impressive as it is, if you did shot that in a studio on a green screen, I probably wouldn't have
Mhm.
thought to. Probably would have looked like that. I don't know how much more pleasing that would have looked. Probably about the same, but
Yeah.
um, this one it actually does look good. Like you said, it's very obvious it's not Roger Moore, but I
Mm.
do like this. It is a really fun sequence where Bond is hanging on the wing of the plane, and they take off, and kind of does like they did in Mission Impossible, where it's just he's hanging on the side of the plane for a really long time.
Yeah. Except I guess Roger Moore is too much of a baby to not do that for real.
Yeah,
Come on,
yeah.
Roger.
If Tom Cruise was James Bond, he would have done it.
Oh yeah. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if we get later on to like Pierce Brosnan and they're like, yeah, we called up Tom Cruise to do like half the movie, but we decided it wasn't working out. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, I mean, and that's the actual end of the movie right there is the plane crashes, and then we actually get some wrap up time. And you know what he does at the end of the movie? He sleeps with Octopussy, even though he has a broken leg. Wow. James, all the
he
chances.
he goes through with it with the pain. He's totally fine with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
but
mean, when you got someone like Octopussy, I mean, he'll put up with a lot, right?
yeah, a broken leg, I guess. But I mean, that's the movie's plot. I feel like I skipped over a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of little stuff in this movie. Like I forgot to bring up the fake crocodile that is
Oh,
swimming
oh
around.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like little sequences like that where well the funniest part with that was is like because I remember when I saw it and I'm like I thought that was supposed to be like a real thing and I'm
Me
like
too.
and I thought I was like oh that looks so bad and then
Yeah.
but then when he opens it I'm like oh okay but it is I do like the sequence where he's fighting with somebody in the water and he
Mhm.
pretends to get eaten by
I
the
like that too.
crocodile
Yeah,
and then
and
and he
Octopussy
comes
thinks
back
he's
out.
dead. But go ahead, sorry.
No, I just he comes back out later, and so it just he just climbed back into the sub or whatever.
Yeah, but no, that's funny because I thought the same thing. I was like, wow, didn't they have a crocodile in one of the other movies? And oh, yeah, that's right. He's in the pit full of crocodiles.
Those
So,
are alligators,
oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Those were gators. So no crocodiles have been in these movies yet.
or they
Um,
could have been. I don't remember, but
who
anyway.
knows? Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can go over like kind of how much box office this movie made, but I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to touch upon.
Um, no, I mean, I just like I said, for me, it had a very strong start, and not not a very strong second half. Like I really wish maybe the two sequences were kind of swapped maybe like where the train
Okay.
sequence kind of ends the movie and then maybe
Yeah.
like the plane is kind of like they use that to take out Kamal but um no I mean I don't have any other specific scenes though.
No, yeah. And you say that now. I didn't think of that, but I was like, yeah, because I mean, like, I think it's just the thought of Bond disarming a nuclear bomb, and then there's more to the climax. Disarming a nuclear bomb should be the peak of a climax, but
Yeah,
yeah, I guess that's just a little odd. But yeah, I mean, Octopussy isn't really remembered like very well, but like you said, it's kind of the middle of the road, but it didn't make money. It made $67.9 million, which makes it the 10th highest grossing Bond movie of all time, if you include all of them. And I guess the big question is, did it make more money than Never Say Never Again? And
I
you'll
uh,
have to find out next
oh
month when we talk about that one. But it did make more money than For Your Eyes Only. I will say that. So it at least topped the last Bond.
yeah I think the last Bond was a little too boring but this one this one was definitely better in my opinion
Yeah.
compared to his last outing. I but I looked on the list because I was just like, what is the consensus of people's opinion of Octopussy?
Yeah.
And it's not very good, honestly. I
Yeah.
mean, like I think I looked on Rotten Tomatoes. They have like their own where they go just based off the tomato score, and not they did include Casino Royale, the '60s one, but
Okay.
taking that one out of
Yeah.
the equation, they rate this one as the second worst Bond.
What? Really? No way. It's no. That's it's not bad. Like I mean like there's like what's worse than it?
Um, Man with the Golden Gun.
Okay, I was gonna say like Man with the Golden Gun is worse than this, but I would say even For Your Eyes Only is worse than this, and Diamonds Are Forever. I'd probably watch Octopussy over that. There's definitely a few more that I would place below it, and I'm sure as we move on, that'll definitely change as well.
But I've never seen a list though, like of my searching where it's just like the Octopussy top 10 or top 5. It's just never. It
No.
was never in that type of league. It was always just like, yeah, it's okay or it's awful.
Yeah, that's weird. On Letterbox, the average is a 2.9, which I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That makes it better than 7 other Bond movies on here, which isn't, you know.
That's probably about right. Yeah.
Yeah, when we get to later, I'm sure I'll think of it a little bit better, but I think that does wrap it up for this one, Octopussy. Would you recommend it?
Yeah, I would definitely. It's not a very strong one where it's like go out of your way, but yeah, I would say watch it.
Yeah, and then I agree. I'd recommend it as well. It's not like the best Bond movie, but I think it's one of if you're looking for a Roger Moore one, I think there's worse choices here. But James Bond will kind of return, like Sean Connery Bond will return in Never Say Never Again.
Can't wait.
Yes, I can't wait either. But Ryan, what are we going to be talking about on Thursday?
Well, Nathan, even though we're done talking about Godzilla for now, we still got other kaijus. I mean, that's just Japan's deal. Like they just got giant monsters running around all over the place. So
Sucks for them.
we gotta go back and see who else we can talk about. So we have another one, which is not a Toho movie, but it is a giant monster movie, and that is the X from Outer Space, which is streaming over on Max right now.
All right. Well, I'm excited to watch that one. And if you enjoyed, be sure to email us at drivein-double-feature-podcast@gmail.com. You can X at us at DIDF. But until next time.
Until next time.